The planet Aquatica Prime was a symphony of order, conducted by the meticulous hand of the Cephalopodians. These weren't your earthly calamari-destined cephalopods, mind you. Imagine towering beings, bioluminescent, with tentacles that tapped, on data slates faster than any quantum computer. Their city, Cephalopods, was a marvel of hydroengineering. Gleaming crystal towers pierced the ocean's surface, connected by shimmering tunnels filled with pressurized, oxygenated water. Every movement, every transaction, every thought, it seemed, was meticulously documented, cross-referenced, and filed in triplicate. Efficiency was not just a virtue, it was their religion. But beneath this veneer of perfect order, a crisis was brewing. A series of anomalies, glitches in the matrix, so to speak. The rhythmic pulse of Cephalopods was faltering. For centuries, the Grand Algorithmic Council, the supreme authority of the Cephalopodians, had predicted and managed every possible variable in their society, from kelp harvests to the optimal angle for sunbeam refraction through their crystal towers. Nothing was left to chance. Yet lately things were off. The nutrient paste dispensers were inexplicably producing strawberry flavor instead of the mandated seaweed blend. The synchronized swimming displays were, on occasion, unsynchronized. And most alarmingly, whispers circulated of laughter. The Grand Algorithmic Council, a collective of the 12 oldest and most logically inclined Cephalopodians, convened in the deepest chamber of the central data spire. Bioluminescent patterns flickered across their bulbous heads as they analyzed the cascading data streams, searching for the root cause of this societal arrhythmia. Elder Octavius, the de facto leader of the council, pulsed a particularly agitated shade of cerulean. "The projections are clear," he boomed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Our perfectly calibrated system is experiencing deviation. Unacceptable deviation." The question wasn't whether there was a problem. The flashing error messages screamed that loud and clear. The question was, what could possibly be causing such a disruption in a civilization so dedicated to unwavering predictability? The answer, as they would soon discover, was far more perplexing and far more human than they could ever have conceived. The universe, it appeared, had a rather twisted sense of humor, and it was about to play a joke on the Cephalopodians, a joke delivered in the form of a single, unassuming, and utterly chaotic earthling. And then, he arrived. Ambassador. Well, the Cephalopodians weren't entirely sure what he was supposed to be. His official designation on the manifest was cultural liaison, a term that seemed woefully inadequate to describe the human who stepped, or rather floated, out of the transport vessel. His name was Dave. Just Dave. No last name, no title, just Dave. He wore a wrinkled Hawaiian shirt, board shorts, and a pair of flip-flops that seemed entirely inappropriate for a high-pressure aquatic environment. The welcoming committee, a phalanx of stern-faced Cephalopodians in full ceremonial armor, exchanged confused glances. This was the representative of Earth, the planet famed for its illogical wars, reality television, and questionable dietary habits? Dave, oblivious to the palpable disapproval radiating from the Cephalopodians, grinned and gave a casual wave. "Aloha, dudes," he announced, his voice echoing strangely in the pressurized chamber. "Long flight. Anyone know where I can get a decent burger around here?" The cultural clash was immediate and overwhelming. The Cephalopodians, accustomed to centuries of formalized greetings and precisely choreographed interactions, were utterly unprepared for Dave's lack of formality. Elder Octavius, ever the diplomat, attempted to steer the interaction back towards protocol. "Greetings, Earth representative. We trust your journey was satisfactory?" Dave shrugged. Bumpy. You guys got any of those little cocktail umbrellas? Those things are clutch." He then proceeded to pull a deflated beach ball from his backpack and attempt to inflate it, nearly causing a panic among the security detail who mistook it for some sort of explosive device. It was clear from the start. Dave wasn't just a misfit. He was a walking, talking, beach ball inflating anomaly in the perfectly ordered world of Aquatica Prime. His playful, sarcastic, and utterly informal personality was about to turn their meticulously structured society upside down, one bewildered cephalopodian at a time. The first offense came during the welcoming ceremony. The Cephalopodians, in a display of profound respect, presented Dave with a ceremonial kelp stalk, a rare and highly prized aquatic plant, symbolizing prosperity and harmonious coexistence. Protocol dictated that Dave should accept the stalk with reverence, offer a reciprocal gift of equal value, and then engage in a complex series of ritualistic gestures involving ink expulsion and synchronized tentacle movements. Dave, however, took one look at the kelp stalk and exclaimed, "Whoa, is this seaweed? I love seaweed, makes a mean poke bowl." He then proceeded to take a bite out of the ceremonial kelp stalk, much to the horror of the assembled dignitaries. Elder Octavius nearly fainted, his tentacles flailing in disbelief. The Cephalopodians, struggling to maintain their composure, attempted to explain the significance of the kelp stalk, but Dave remained blissfully ignorant. Yeah, symbol of prosperity, got it," he said, munching thoughtfully. "But seriously, you guys should try it with a little soy sauce and sesame oil. Trust me, game changer." Next came the incident with the hydro gardens. These meticulously cultivated underwater gardens were the pride of Aquatica Prime, each plant genetically engineered. For maximum aesthetic appeal and symbolic value, Cephalopodians spent their entire lives tending to these gardens, carefully pruning and shaping each leaf with the utmost precision. Dave, during a guided tour, spotted a particularly vibrant patch of glowing algae. "Whoa, check out the glow sticks," he exclaimed, reaching out and plucking a handful of the algae. "These would look sick at a rave." Before anyone could stop him, he'd stuffed the glowing algae into his pockets, leaving a trail of shimmering green particles in his wake. The head gardener, a Cephalopodian known for his unwavering devotion to his plants, let out a mournful wail. He collapsed to the seabed, clutching his tentacles to his chest in despair. The algae, the sacred algae, he defiled it with his rave. But the most egregious offense occurred during a formal dinner with the Cephalopodian High Council. The meal, a carefully curated selection of bioluminescent plankton and fermented sea cucumbers, was designed to showcase the culinary artistry of Aquatica Prime. Each dish was presented with meticulous care, accompanied by lengthy explanations of its cultural significance. Dave, however, was unimpressed. He picked at the plankton with a skeptical expression, then wrinkled his nose at the sea cucumbers. "Seriously? This is it?" he asked, his voice echoing through the silent chamber. "No offense, guys, but this stuff tastes like fish food. You got any hot sauce?" The High Council members exchanged horrified glances. Hot sauce? On sacred, meticulously prepared delicacies? The very notion was an insult of unimaginable proportions. Elder Octavius, his patience finally wearing thin, fixed Dave with a stern gaze. "Ambassador Dave," he said, his voice dripping with icy formality. "Do you not understand the gravity of this situation? Your behavior is unconventional, to say the least." Dave shrugged, oblivious to the rising tension. "Hey, I'm just being honest," he said. "And besides, a little spice never hurt anyone. Maybe you guys should try it sometime, loosen up a little, you know?" The bewildered and increasingly frustrated Cephalopodian High Council stared back in stony silence. Deep within the Cephalopodians, military research facility lay the hydro-pulse regulator, a device of immense power and even greater reverence. It was a marvel of aquatic engineering, a symphony of shimmering metals, pulsating crystals, and swirling currents. The regulator was the cornerstone of Aquatica Prime's defense system, capable of generating powerful sonic waves that could repel any invading force. The device hummed with barely contained energy, its intricate mechanisms a testament to centuries of Cephalopodian scientific advancement. Coolant fluids, luminescent and viscous, coursed through transparent tubes, casting eerie shadows on the surrounding walls. Every component was calibrated with micrometer precision, each pulse of energy monitored by a team of highly trained technicians. Dave, escorted by a nervous contingent of Cephalopodians, found himself standing before this technological marvel. He whistled softly, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Wow," he said, "that's one heck of a fish tank. What's it do? Make bubbles?" The Cephalopodians exchanged uneasy glances. Elder Octavius, his tentacles twitching nervously, stepped forward. "Ambassador Dave," he said, his voice laced with a hint of warning. "This is the hydropulse regulator. It is the most powerful weapon in our arsenal, a symbol of our strength and resolve." Dave, however, seemed unfazed. He leaned closer, peering at the intricate network of tubes and wires. "A weapon, huh? Looks more like a fancy water fountain to me." He reached out and touched one of the pulsating crystals, his brow furrowed in concentration. "So how does this thing work exactly?" The Cephalopodians recoiled in horror. Touching. The hydropulse regulator was strictly forbidden, a violation of the highest order. "Ambassador Dave, please," Elder Octavius exclaimed, his tentacles flailing in distress. "Do not interfere with the regulator. Its power is unpredictable." But Dave, as usual, paid no heed to their warnings. His curiosity piqued. He began to tinker with the device, his fingers probing and adjusting with a surprising degree of expertise. He disconnected a few wires, rotated a crystal, and then pressed a large, invitingly red button. "Let's see what this does," he muttered, a mischievous glint in his eye, completely unaware of the potential consequences of his actions. Dave's tinkering, fueled by a mix of curiosity and blissful ignorance, had consequences that rippled through Aquatica Prime faster than a kraken on caffeine. He'd managed to bypass several security protocols, reroute energy flow, and essentially turn the hydropulse regulator into something it was never intended to be. The machine shuddered, groaned, and then emitted a series of strange, warbling noises that sounded suspiciously like a poorly tuned musical instrument. Instead of a focused sonic blast designed to obliterate enemy ships, the regulator now produced a wide-spectrum, multi-directional wave of, well, bubbly, musical energy. This wasn't the sound of destruction. It was more like the soundtrack to a bizarre underwater rave. The effects were immediate and utterly chaotic. In the Cephalopodians' meticulously ordered society, the sudden influx of this chaotic energy threw everything into disarray. Military drills turned into impromptu dance-offs. Formal diplomatic meetings devolved into sing-alongs. Even the Elder Council found themselves tapping their tentacles to the infectious rhythm, their stern expressions replaced with goofy grins. The aquatic wildlife, usually wary of the Cephalopodians' military activities, now flocked to the source of the music, creating an impromptu underwater conga line. Schools of bioluminescent fish danced in synchronized patterns, jellyfish pulsed in time with the beat, and even the normally grumpy sea slugs seemed to be enjoying the vibe. The Cephalopodians' rigid adherence to protocol began to crumble. Soldiers started swapping their laser rifles for inflatable guitars. Bureaucrats replaced their stacks of paperwork with glow sticks. The entire planet was slowly transforming into an underwater disco, and Dave, oblivious to the chaos he had unleashed, was happily adjusting the volume. Elder Octavius, witnessing the pandemonium, could only splutter in disbelief. This is madness," he exclaimed, his tentacles flailing wildly. "He's turned our weapon of mass destruction into a karaoke machine." The satire was complete. The Cephalopodians, a species defined by order and discipline, were now victims of a cosmic joke, orchestrated by a human with a penchant for tinkering and a complete disregard for galactic norms. As the aquatic rave engulfed Aquatica Prime, the Cephalopodian High Command convened an emergency session. Holographic projections flickered, displaying scenes of utter pandemonium from across the ocean world. Elder Octavius, his face a mask of bewildered fury, slammed a tentacle on the console. This Dave is clearly an agent of chaos." General Krill, a seasoned military strategist, adjusted his monocle. His actions, though seemingly random, have effectively neutralized our entire defense system. Our forces are distracted, to say the least. He gestured to a display showing a squadron of battle cruisers engaging in a synchronized swimming routine. Suspicion hardened into conviction. This wasn't mere incompetence. This was sabotage. The human, with his disarming grin and baffling behavior, was clearly playing a deeper game. They had underestimated him, mistaking his casual attitude for naivete. It was a fatal error. "We must contain him," Elder Octavius declared, his voice resonating with newfound resolve, "before he unravels the very fabric of our society." He issued a series of rapid-fire commands, dispatching elite security forces to apprehend the rogue human. "Use extreme caution. He may be more dangerous than he appears." A squad of heavily armed Cephalopodian soldiers, equipped with sonic dampeners and energy nets, descended upon Dave's location, the now pulsating hydro-pulse regulator chamber. They moved with practiced precision, their bioluminescent armor flashing in the strobing lights of the underwater disco. Their mission? To subdue the human threat and restore order to Aquatica Prime. Meanwhile, Dave, still blissfully unaware of the impending crackdown, was fine-tuning the regulator's settings. He'd discovered that by adjusting the frequency, he could produce different genres of music. He was currently experimenting with a particularly catchy strain of underwater polka. "Just gotta get that bass line right," he muttered, oblivious to the armed figures closing in. The stage was set for a confrontation, a clash between rigid alien order and human-engineered chaos. The Cephalopodian soldiers stormed into the hydropulse regulator chamber, weapons raised only to be met with a scene that defied all logical comprehension. Dave, earbuds blasting, was dancing with surprising agility amidst a swirling vortex of bubbles and multicolored light. And at the heart of it all, the hydropulse regulator, their most sacred and powerful device, was playing music. Elder Octavius, watching the feed from the command center, could only sputter in disbelief. What is the meaning of this? The truth, when it finally dawned, was more ridiculous than any of them could have imagined. The hydropulse regulator wasn't a weapon or a power source or anything remotely strategic. It was, in fact, a giant, incredibly complex karaoke machine. The pulse it emitted wasn't an energy beam, but a carefully modulated sonic vibration, designed to enhance vocal performance. The hydro part? That was just to keep your tentacles moist while you belted out your favorite Cephalopodian sea shanties. The soldiers lowered their weapons, their faces a mixture of confusion and embarrassment. The elite security force trained for intergalactic warfare had been deployed to shut down a karaoke party. Dave, finally noticing the armed entourage, pulled out his earbuds. "Oh, hey guys, you came to sing? Awesome. I was just about to try out this new ballad. It's a real tearjerker." He gestured to the control panel with a flourish. "Mic's all yours." The absurdity of the situation hung heavy in the water, the weight of generations of Cephalopodian seriousness colliding head-on with the sheer, unadulterated silliness of human entertainment. Elder Octavius, after a long, stunned silence, let out a single, defeated sigh. He pinched the bridge of his nose, or where his nose would have been if he were a human. The entire planet, it seemed, had been terrorized by a cosmic jukebox. The Cephalopodian High Command, the guardians of Aquatica Prime, had been outsmarted by karaoke. The camera zoomed in on Dave, who was now happily belting out a surprisingly accurate rendition of a Cephalopodian opera, his voice echoing through the chamber. The soldiers, still bewildered, slowly began to tap their tentacles to the beat. Even General Krill, watching from the command center, couldn't help but crack a smile. The weapon was harmless, the threat non-existent, the whole thing utterly, hilariously, ridiculous. The revelation rippled through Cephalopodian society like a rogue current. The High Command, usually so rigid and unyielding, found itself adrift in a sea of existential questioning. Was their entire culture built on a foundation of elaborate performative seriousness? Had they mistaken technological complexity for genuine purpose? Elder Octavius, once a staunch defender of tradition, began to spend his evenings in the hydropulse regulator chamber, tentatively experimenting with different vocal settings. He wouldn't admit it to anyone, of course, but he found a certain release in belting out mournful sea shanties about the futility of war. General Krill, too, found himself strangely drawn to the karaoke machine. He started composing his own songs, epic ballads about heroic battles that subtly hinted at the importance of taking breaks and enjoying life. The younger generation of cephalopods, already chafing under the weight of tradition, embraced the karaoke revolution with unbridled enthusiasm. Underground karaoke bars sprung up across Aquatica Prime, filled with neon lights and the sound of off-key tentacles singing their hearts out. Some traditionalists, of course, resisted the change. They saw the karaoke craze as a sign of moral decay, a symptom of the human's corrupting influence. They doubled down on their adherence to protocol, organizing even more elaborate and pointless ceremonies to reaffirm their commitment to seriousness. But even they couldn't deny the subtle shift in the cultural current. The Cephalopodian society was slowly, awkwardly, learning to laugh at itself. The rigid lines of their bureaucratic structure began to blur, replaced by a newfound appreciation for spontaneity and self-expression. And it all started with a clueless human, a misplaced karaoke machine, and a song about the existential angst of a deep-sea squid. Years later, a small plaque was erected in the Grand Hall of Aquatica Prime. It commemorated the Great Karaoke incident, not as a military crisis but as a cultural turning point. The inscription, written in both Cephalopodian script and hilariously mangled English, read, "Here stood the Hydropulse Regulator 3000. It almost started a war. It accidentally started a party. Mostly it reminded us not to take ourselves too seriously, or seriously at all." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dave was telling the story of his alien adventure to anyone who would listen, usually over a pint. At his local pub, he always ended the tale with a shrug and a grin. "So yeah," he'd say, "turns out the deadliest weapon in the galaxy? Just needed a decent playlist."